I want you to close your eyes for a second. Picture this. It's the first week of November. The rut is kicking in. You're sitting maybe 20 feet up in a swaying oak tree. The air is crisp. You can see your breath. And the sun is just starting to burn the frost off the field edge below you. You've got your coffee. Your gear is perfect. But the best part, it's the silence.
Oh, that specific kind of silence.
Yeah.
The one where you just know you're the only human being for like a mile in any direction.
That's it. No public land pressure. No guy walking past your stand 5 minutes after sunrise, banging a climbing stick against a tree.
Yeah.
It's just you. And the potential for a monster buck. It is the absolute hunter's dream.
Yeah.
Access to premier private ground.
It is the dream we all chase. But, waking up in that tree stand, that's actually the easy part. Is the nightmare you sometimes have to go through to get there that people don't talk about enough.
That is the reality check, isn't it? We romanticize the result, but the process is a total grind. We have this nostalgic idea that securing a hunting spot is as simple as driving down a gravel road, finding a friendly farmer on a porch,
Shaking his hands.
a handshake, and boom, you've got the keys to the kingdom.
And maybe that was a thing 40 years ago. But today, that whole landscape it's a wild west of handshake deals, vague boundaries, liability traps, and just a whole lot of wasted gas money.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're taking a deep dive into the messy, messy world of hunting leases. We're using a really comprehensive breakdown from Basecamp Leasing and the outdoor writer Josh Honeycutt as our map. They've identified 18 specific problems that plague the DIY leasing world.
And these aren't just, minor inconveniences. We're talking about real legal pitfalls, financial risks, and the kind of catfish situations where the land you lease looks nothing like the land you were promised.
So our mission today is pretty simple. We want to take you from that chaotic, headache-filled search for land and show you what a structured, professional approach looks like. We're going to see if we can turn that Wild West into something a little more civilized.
It really is a story about professionalization. I mean, is hunting access a casual favor between friends, or is it a legitimate business transaction? The data suggests that if you treat it like a business, you actually get to enjoy the hunting part a whole lot more.
So let's start where every hunter starts. The hunt before the hunt. Finding the dirt. In the breakdown we're looking at, they describe the DIY route as downright daunting. And I have to say, that feels like an understatement.
It's an inventory problem, really. If you decide to go the DIY route, you're essentially signing up for a second job. You're scanning county tax maps, you're cold calling numbers that might not even work, or you're doing the Saturday drive of shame, just knocking on doors.
Oh, I've been there. Putting on the nice flannel shirt, trying to look approachable but not desperate, and just getting rejected face-to-face over and over again. It's brutal.
It is brutal. And it's incredibly inefficient. I mean, think about the sheer man-hours involved. You could spend 6 months knocking on doors and burning diesel and still end up with 0 acres to hunt come September. You're operating in a total vacuum of information.
That's such a great point. We have apps for everything. I can find a sushi restaurant in a city I've never been to in 10 seconds. I can buy a house on Zillow without getting off the couch. But for hunting land, it still feels like we're stuck in 1985.
That's the digital gap Josh Honeycutt talks about. In the general marketplace, there's just no centralized database. It's all fragmented.
Yeah.
But then you look at an agency model like Basecamp Leasing, and they've aggregated something like 6.5 million acres.
She got 500,000.
Think about the power of that
Yeah.
data set. Instead of you driving around looking for one little for lease sign on a fence post, you have a searchable inventory. It totally flips the dynamic from begging for access to shopping for options.
But even when you find a place, say, on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, the interface is usually terrible. It's so clunky.
Right, because the landowner isn't a web developer. They post a vague description. Maybe they don't respond to emails. It's just chaotic. But there's a deeper issue here than just bad websites. It's the missing middleman.
You mean the lack of a referee?
Exactly. In a direct deal, it's just you and the landowner. And that sounds appealing. Cut out the middleman, right?
Yeah.
But when conflict happens, and it always does, you're on an island. Maybe the farmer decides to cut timber during opening week. Maybe his nephew decides he wants to hunt your stand. What do you call?
You call the guy who is causing the problem. And that is an awkward conversation.
It's a conversation that usually ends with you losing the lease. Having a leasing agent, an educated office staff, or a field agent, it creates a buffer. It depersonalizes the conflict. It turns an emotional argument into a policy discussion.
So it saves the relationship, ironically, by putting someone between the two parties.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we survive the search. We find a guy who says yes. Now we enter what you call the paperwork minefield.
And this is where the nostalgia of the handshake deal really comes back to bite people.
I hear this all the time. My word is my bond. We don't need lawyers involved. It sounds so principled. Why is it such a bad idea?
Because memory is fallible and life is complicated. It's not necessarily about malice, it's just about ambiguity. You shake hands in June. By November, the landowner forgot he said you could bring your ATV. Now you've got a dispute. The lack of a protective lease agreement leaves you totally exposed.
And I'm assuming it's not just about ATVs. We're talking about liability, right?
Yeah. We'll get to the scary insurance stuff in just a minute. But yes, without a contract, the rules of engagement are undefined. And even when people do write something down, the insight here is that they often use insufficient lease agreements.
The old napkin contract.
Or a template they downloaded from some generic legal site that doesn't understand hunting. It's just full of holes. A professional hunting lease contract is specific. It covers timber rights, crop damage, guests, camping, fires. It ensures, as the text says, that each side receives that which is due them. It removes the he said, she said.
Speaking of receiving what is due, let's talk about the money. This part fascinated me because it shows how much the culture is shifting. In the old days, you'd drive out to the farm and hand the guy a roll of cash.
Or a personal check that might bounce. Or maybe you trade some labor for access. It's what the source calls unorganized transaction policies. It's just messy. The landowner's guessing at the price. You're guessing if it's even worth it.
And Basecamp Leasing has taken a pretty hard line on this, right?
They have. They require a deposit, and the remainder is due within a week. But catch this. They accept credit cards or certified checks. They explicitly do not accept cash, personal checks, or business checks.
That feels very corporate for a hunting trip.
It is, and that's the whole point. It creates a legitimate paper trail. It protects the landowner from bad checks, and it proves you paid. It elevates the lease from a good old boy favor to a verifiable asset transaction.
Okay, I promise we'd get to the scary stuff. Let's talk about the what-ifs, because we all think we're safe until we aren't. A tree stand strap snaps, an ATV rolls over, a stray bullet hits a barn.
This is the stuff that keeps landowners awake at night. In the DIY world, there's often a total absence of liability insurance coverage. If you get hurt on that farmer's land and there's no insurance, guess who gets sued?
The farmer.
The farmer. And guess who loses everything? Both of you.
But a lot of guys will say, oh, I have insurance through my homeowner's policy, or the club has a policy.
And that brings us to the underinsured trap. This was a real eye-opener in the research. A lot of standard policies cap out at $1 million.
Which sounds like a fortune. I mean, who needs more than $1 million?
In 2026, you'd be surprised how fast that disappears. If you have a catastrophic injury spine, brain plus helicopter transport, plus lost wages for 30 years, plus pain and suffering, that $1 million is gone before the first court date.
That is a terrifying thought. One bad step and you're bankrupting the farm you're hunting on?
Precisely. And that's why the agency standard has shifted so dramatically. Basecamp Leasing now implements a $5 million liability policy.
$5 million? That is a serious moat.
It is. It's virtually unheard of in the handshake world. It provides a level of insulation that allows the landowner to sleep at night. And for you, the hunter, it means you aren't risking your family's financial future every time you climb a tree. It's not just insurance. It's a survival strategy for the sport.
So we're insured, we've paid with a certified check, we have a contract, now we actually have to hunt. And this is where expectation meets reality. We've all been there. The catfish listing.
The internet dating profile of hunting land.
Prime whitetail habitat. And you show up, and it's a paved parking lot next to a highway.
That is the poor explanation of property details. In the DIY market, landowners often oversell. They might post one grainy photo of a deer taken in 1998. You drive 4 hours to scout it, and you realize you've been duped. It's a massive waste of time.
And the agency approach is, what? Just more transparency?
It has to be. We're talking extensive topographical maps, current aerial photography, detailed descriptions of the timber and water sources, and crucially, the right to inspect. You never put down the full money until you've walked the ground.
You've got to kick the dirt. But there's another aspect of the experience that I think is even more important than the map. It's the pressure. Crowd control.
This is a biological issue. Inadequate structure for number of hunters. If I'm a landowner and I just want cash, I might lease my 100 acres to 10 guys.
That's not a hunt, that's a pumpkin patch. Just orange vest behind every tree.
It's dangerous, sure, but it also ruins the hunting. The deer pressure goes through the roof, the mature bucks go nocturnal or leave the property entirely. You're paying to sit in an empty woods.
So how do you stop a landowner from getting greedy?
In the agency model, the agent, who is usually a biologist or a serious hunter themselves, sets the limit. They look at the habitat and say, this land can support 4 hunters. That's it. They prioritize the quality of the wildlife over squeezing every last dime out of the acreage.
That actually protects the asset for the future. If you burn out the property this year, nobody's going to lease it next year.
Exactly. It's sustainable forestry, but for deer.
Now, I want to circle back to something we touched on with money, pricing. Because there's this weird psychological game we play as hunters. We want the deal. We want the cheap lease. But the breakdown here suggests that the cheap lease is actually a trap.
It is the pricing paradox.
Yeah.
We are conditioned to look for a bargain. But think about it economically. If you're paying significantly below market value, let's say you're getting a steal, what position does that put you in?
I guess I feel like I won.
For a minute. But you're vulnerable. You're creating a massive incentive for someone else to swoop in. If you're paying $5 an acre and the market is 15, all it takes is one guy driving by with a fatter wad of cash, as Honeycutt puts it, to offer the farmer 10. The farmer doubles his money and you lose your lease.
So the steal creates insecurity. You're always looking over your shoulder.
Right. Paying market value, avoiding that improper correlation, is essentially paying for security.
Yeah.
You're locking the door so no one else can outbid you easily. It stabilizes the asset.
That is a really counterintuitive way to look at it, but it makes total sense. If the landowner is getting fair market value, they have no reason to shop around.
And that leads us perfectly into the biggest anxiety every lease hunter has: security and future-proofing. Because, let's be honest, the first year on a lease is just hard work.
Oh, it's all sweat equity. You're hanging stands, clearing lanes, maybe you're planting food plots, you're learning the trails. You put in all that work, and your biggest fear is that next year, you're out.
The fear of loss. In a handshake deal, you have 0 tenure. Maybe the landowner's cousin decides he wants to hunt. Maybe someone with a prettier smile comes along. You have no recourse. You built the factory and someone else just took the keys.
So how does a contract fix that?
It's called the first right of renewal.
Give me the layperson's version.
Think of it like the franchise tag in the NFL or rent control. Before that property goes back on the open market, the current leaseholder has the exclusive right to renew. If you want it, it's yours.
That changes everything. That means I can plant an apple tree today knowing I'll be the one sitting over it 5 years from now.
It converts a short-term rental into a long-term management project. It stops the annual free-for-all.
But doesn't that give the landowner the power to just jack up the price? Sure, you can renew, but it's double the cost.
That's the other half of the equation. A structured system prevents those arbitrary price hikes. The guidance here is that increases should track with the cost of living inflation, tax increases, predictable small bumps, not, I want to buy a new truck so your rent just doubled.
Predictability. That seems to be the theme here. Yeah. Now there's one last piece of the puzzle, and it's a gritty one. It's the one thing that ruins a hunt faster than anything else. Trespassing.
The bane of every hunter's existence.
The breakdown mentions something fascinating about the legal difference between a DIY hunter and an agency hunter when it comes to trespassers.
Yes. This is a nuance most people miss. In a standard permission deal, you're a guest. If you catch a poacher on the land, you actually have very little legal standing. You aren't the landowner. You can't prosecute. You can't even kick them off. You have to call the farmer, and honestly, the farmer might not care enough to come out there.
You're just a witness.
Right. But under a professional lease agreement like BCL's, the contract empowers the hunter to act on the landowner's behalf. You become the agent of the property.
So you're deputized.
Essentially, you can post signs, you can confront trespassers with legal authority, you can press charges. It turns the hunter from a passive guest into an active steward of the security.
That is huge. Because if the bad guys know the lessee has no power, they'll walk all over you. But if they know you have the legal right to prosecute, they'll go somewhere else.
It cleans up the neighborhood.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from the nightmare of the cold call search, through the legal maze, the money, the insurance, all the way to securing your spot for the future. When you look at these 18 problems as a whole, what's the big takeaway for you?
It's a shift in mindset. We're moving from a world of diminished peace of mind, where you're constantly worried about liability or losing the land or getting ripped off to a world of confidence.
It's about removing the friction.
98% of the hunters who use this system report satisfaction, and I don't think that's just because they shot big deer. It's because the hassle and headache were removed. They didn't have to play lawyer or accountant. They just got to be hunters.
And that's really what we're all after. I want to worry about wind direction and thermals. I don't want to worry if my contract is valid or if I'm about to be sued.
Exactly. The structure provides the freedom.
As we wrap this up, I'm left with the thought about the future of our sport. We tend to resist change. We love the old ways, the handshake, the cash on the barrelhead. It feels authentic. But as land becomes scarcer and the world becomes more litigious, those old ways are starting to look pretty fragile.
They are. The Wild West is fun in movies, but you don't really want to live there.
So here is the question for you to chew on as you head out this week. Is the professionalization of hunting, the contracts, the insurance, the agents, is that actually the thing that saves the tradition? Maybe killing the handshake deal is the only way to ensure we still have a place to sit in that tree stand 20 years from now.
That is the ultimate question. Adapt or lose access.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We hope it helps you navigate the woods a little better. We'll see you on the next one. Stay safe out there.